Expro Experts Unplugged, and for this episode we're going to be looking at well decommissioning, the critical issue of well decommissioning, and I'm delighted to be joined by two of the experts from Expro here, Donald and Alan. My name's Andrew Bradshaw. Let's get to it, guys. If you can give me a brief description of what you do within Expro and your expertise in well decommissioning, Alan and Donald, and then we'll get into the meat of things.
How you doing, Andrew? And thanks for taking the time to have this discussion this morning. My name is Alan Quirke, and I am VP of Well Integrity and Interventions in Expro. So my role is to look across the global organisation and make sure that our assets and our resources are deployed in the correct places, doing the correct things at the correct time.
Yeah.
Good morning, Andrew. So thanks again for having us on today. My name is Donald Horsfall, and I'm the Director of Market Development and Integration. My role really comprises of pulling across product line solutions together for the organisation to make sure that we remain relevant with our customer base. And I'm pleased that my whole career I've been involved in decommissioning, starting off in the UK base and supporting international. So it's not something that we've started today, it's something that we've built on for the last few decades. So, pleased to have the conversation today.
Great, well, thanks for joining us. Big question, and it may seem like a simple one to you guys, but probably a big answer. But how important is decommissioning and plug and abandonment? And we'll probably refer in this podcast to P&A. How important is it?
I think as an industry, we've been fortunate to have been given access to resources to bring energy and to bring that energy security to society.
Yeah.
So I think it's important then that when at the end of that process that we close everything down again, and we cap the systems that we've been using, and we remove those systems from the environment. So I think the decommissioning process in general, and particular well decommissioning, is very, very important. It demonstrates to society that we have used the resources responsibly, and then we've closed off that reservoir and that structure in a very responsible manner.
Yeah. Looking at the P&A process, the various components of a P&A plan, how do companies like Expro support a P&A plug and abandonment project?
That's a really good question. So one of the first components of decommissioning, successful well decommissioning particularly, is understanding what you're going to do.
Yeah.
There's an analogy I use, and it's great that Donald is here because we can talk about this. If you're a marathon runner and you're preparing for a 10-kilometer run, even though you know you can do the distance, you might start putting some targets on yourself to say, I'll do this in 50 minutes or 45 minutes. But if you don't know what the environment that you're going to run in looks like, you can't really set a target.
Yeah.
So a lot of what Expro does is it gives access to companies, to the wells, but it also gathers the data. It gets the information about what does the path look like for the 10 kilometers before I start the run. Am I going to be uphill? Am I going to be downhill? How challenging might it be? How easy may it be? So really what Expro do is two things. It enables the whole activity set of P&A, but it also allows the operator or the owner of the well to gather data and to have information on what the journey is going to be like. So then they can have contingency plans, they can plan better, and they can be more certain in scope execution and scope delivery.
Okay, and as a long distance runner, we better explain Donald's expertise in that field, but Donald, does that kind of resonate with how you see things?
I think it does, and I guess just to add to Alan's point, I think decommissioning doesn't start at COP. Decommissioning starts when you've got a brownfield asset. So from our perspective, it is about that planning ahead of COP to make informed decisions, because that's what allows you to de-risk, that's what allows you to lower cost, and that's what allows you to optimize schedule. And these are the drivers in the decommissioning market. So, going into decommissioning at COP means that you're really failing to plan. You must plan when you still have a producing brownfield asset, collecting that data. And to be honest, that's where we're very proud as Expro to be supporters, in various basins and these brownfield assets, which gives us a really good head start on the decommissioning process. So you've just turned a marathon into an ultra.
Okay, cool. Now, we've talked about the planning aspect of it, but in terms of the operational side of a decommissioning program. Just share with us your thoughts around that and where Expro adds value in that.
So for me, I think the first piece is getting access, getting access to the well. And Expro have a long history, a long track record of providing our customers with that access solution, be it subsea wells, either with riserless systems or riser-based systems, on installations on platforms, taking the opportunity to acquire data off rig on a SimOps activity set. So Expro, first thing we do is we give customers the ability to access their well systems. Second thing we do is we allow the customer, or we give the customer the opportunity to acquire data from their wellbore. And there are smarter and smarter ways to acquire that data now, and we have some new technologies in the portfolio that allows our customer to acquire the data in as short a time as possible, as cost effectively as possible. But acquiring that data then gives all of the elements required to plan that ultra marathon, that ultra race. We now know exactly what we've got to face, what's ahead of us, and we can have all of our stops planned so that we're going to deliver in an effective way. And then when we are running, Expro have got all of those tools in the toolbox that allows the operator to do remedial work to the well, to allow them to do a more efficient well decommissioning, to recover the tubulars from the well so they can get access to reinstate barriers that may have degraded, and then to do the barrier verification, which is so important, going back to our very first point of demonstrating to society that we have now isolated that source of energy from the environment, and we have dealt with our resource in a cost-effective but in a proper way.
Okay. I was going to ask Donald about you talked about the end solution, but what technologies are we talking about here? What Expro technologies actually help in the decommissioning process? Things like Octopoda, I guess.
Yeah, so I think...
And maybe explain what Octopoda is.
Yeah, that's maybe some time for that. I think for us, to follow on from Alan's point, access to the well is key. So just because you plan to decommission a well does not mean you have access. So when you start from the top down, the first thing you have to do is, do you have integrity and do you have safe access to the wellhead? So from ourselves, that's a fairly simple service, but incredibly important, which is wellhead maintenance. Yeah. So you have to reinstate the ability to actually open the well and get access into the well. Then when you now have access into the well, does the well have integrity? So thank you for raising Octopoda as a technology, Andrew. Absolutely. So from our perspective, we have technologies such as digital fibre optic slick line, where we can go in and we can evaluate the full length of the well for any potential challenges which will prevent us from completing the early phase of the P&A in the well. So we may need to go in from the annulus side with Octopoda, and I won't go into the technicals of that on this one, or we may use our Coretrax technology, such as our expandables, to reinstate from the inside of the completion for through wellbore access. So from us, we have a range of technologies for the platform intervention side, but also from the subsea side, to follow on from Alan, we've got a full suite of open water subsea well access for the older style vertical decommissioning projects, to the through BOP subsea test tree technologies for the more familiar horizontal tree projects. And then when we think about when we've got to recover the well at the end, when we've got to recover the completion, from our well construction technology, we've probably got the leading fleet of pipe recovery, tube recovery technologies in the market. Okay. And I think that the key for that is, well decommissioning presents sometimes higher risk than running a completion, because you're pulling pipe out a hole that's been in there for decades that may fall apart. So the lessons learned, the approach, the safety from a well construction team is second to none. So some of it is familiar technology, some of it is niche technology, but together what we're trying to offer is a portfolio to access, intervene, understand, and make informed decisions.
Okay. You touched on something there that I want to explore a bit further. I'll ask you first, and then maybe ask for your views on it afterwards, Alan. But the safety aspect of it, and the human risk element of it. So, how can we reduce the human risk in terms of the technologies that we may have at Expro, the services that we have at Expro?
I think it goes back to your earlier point, Andrew, that the more information you have, the lower you can, the lower you can make the risk.
Yeah.
So if you plan, generally you plan for the likely case, the unlikely case, and the unknown.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we offer. So we've got a portfolio of lessons learned where things maybe haven't gone according to plan. So planning is all down to the risk management. So yes, there's technologies we can introduce in regards to maybe do less well intervention runs and run tools together, or from a subsea perspective, whether we can hop across wells, or from a surface well test perspective, we can do more with the package. But ultimately, my personal view is it's in the planning. Planning is what assists us in de-risking the actual execution of operation.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, because we don't want to put people in harm's way, as much as we can. And Expro have been developing and have commercialized products now that remove people from harm's way. So our red zone management, very much on our TRS ITONG, it keeps people out of keeps people out of the red zone, so they're not going into harm's way. From the data acquisition perspective and gathering data from the wellbore, we have, as Donald mentioned earlier, on the DFOS system, which requires fewer people to be on site, but you're maximizing the data that you acquire with fewer people on location. And all of the work to de-risk is done post-data acquisition, post-analysis, to Donald's point then, when you can then accelerate your planning and understand the scope. So you're really minimizing the amount of people that you need to execute the task.
Okay, I'm going to step in with just explain a couple of acronyms for everybody out there, but TRS will be Tubular Running Services. I'm sure you know this. I mean, and the other one will be DFOS, which is Distributed Fibre Optic Sensing. Sorry, Donald.
Yeah, I was going to add to that as well. I think we're pretty lucky to evidence Alan's point. When you look at the end of a decom project, it's about the AFE. So ultimately you're measured on safety.
Yeah.
The safety is not optional. Safety is mandatory. So it's a given. If you operate in this basin, your safety is everything. But you're measured by the AFE, and I think we've been really lucky on the projects we've executed on in the basin where we are beating AFE, we are beating schedule, and it's about that planning pre-operations and partnering the customer. So we hold ourselves to account on that measurement.
Okay, and AFE would be?
Application for expenditure.
There we go. Hope you got that. The next question I was going to ask about is long-term monitoring of P&A wells. So how can we ensure long-term monitoring of the wells, and what technologies? This is causing a smile with these two here.
I smile here because we've spoken with this quite a lot. I've had 10 years in the operator community, so I come from a well owner's background.
Okay.
And when I hear a request to monitor my well that I've abandoned, I smile. We shouldn't be monitoring abandoned wells. We should have installed the barriers in the system that are fit for purpose at the time. What we do monitor, though, is temporary suspended wells. And we do a lot of that work in a lot of basins worldwide. And really Donald is the expert to talk to on this one, because it's the CAT system that we use, and I'm going to now hand over so you can describe the acronym CATS.
Yes.
Yeah.
So CATS, system for Expro, is our cableless telemetry system, which is our wireless pressure and temperature gauge, which uses electromagnetic communication to communicate wirelessly from wherever it's installed to wherever we want the data. So no cables, no need for any conduits.
Yeah.
And to restate what Alan said, it's very, very important to differentiate monitoring an abandoned well from a suspended well. So for us, the monitoring of abandoned wells actually kind of jumps into our adjacent sector, which would be CCUS.
Okay.
So what we see is there is, legacy oil and gas fields out there which are looking to be converted to CCUS storage targets. And we see a huge opportunity to instrument these abandoned wells with our wireless telemetry system CATS for the purpose of reservoir understanding and carbon capture plume migration to really optimize that storage cell and ensure that the storage owner, the customer, optimizes that reservoir. So yes, Andrew, there absolutely is an opportunity to monitor abandoned wells, but in CCUS.
Okay.
In conventional, absolutely, suspended wells. We have a responsibility to ensure that hydrocarbon does not escape. So where a well is suspended for a period of time, we have the technology which can be implemented to tell the customer in advance of any escape or any loss of control or containment that it's going to happen, because of the way in which you put plugs in the well, we can monitor underneath the lower plug, which gives you an early indicator that something negative has happened. You now need to take action, but you still have control of the well.
Okay, so carbon capture, utilization, storage, wells provide a great opportunity for long-term monitoring.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we're very lucky. I mean, the technology itself, I smile because I was lucky enough to work in that business unit for a number of years, and it's came on leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. So now for carbon capture storage, we're pretty proud to be able to offer, over a decade of monitoring in a carbon capture storage location. That wasn't possible 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So the engineering effort from the expert team and the investment from our EMT in this technology has been fantastic for the shift into carbon capture.
Yeah.
So hopefully for us, we're meeting our customers' expectations.
Great. Alan, I'll put this to you first. How does Expro support plug and abandonment in subsea wells?
Very similar to how we support the plug and abandonment in the platform well.
Okay.
But going all the way back, it's about providing the access to that wellbore so that the client can acquire the data first and foremost, and then liquidate the abandonment activity. Either a riserless system, a riser-based system.
Yeah.
We've been working in that space for at least the last 15 years now, providing access. And really there's no difference to providing access to a well for P&A than there is to providing access to a well that's been constructed or worked over, or we're doing some form of production optimization activity.
The environment's a big issue for everybody, but I just wonder how important do you see environmental issues in P&A projects, and how does Expro reduce environmental impact or ensure that environmental impact is minimised in your projects?
Yeah, one of the key parts of P&A in a well is to deal with the effluent sometimes that are in the annuli spaces or even in the wellbore itself. And through the flow management product division and our colleagues in the flow management side, we have that ability to take that effluent from the wellbore, separate it, and then have it or allow it to be disposed of in the correct manner, in the proper. So we've got the full suite of allowing the customer to have access, allowing the customer to gather the data, and then allowing the customer to circulate that wellbore clean, take the effluent from the wellbore, separate it, and allow them to dispose it in the correct manner.
The full shebang.
And I think you raise a really good topic there, Andrew, because I think what's possibly not understood and not captured, to add on to Alan's point, when we think about surface well test, we think about completion development, but in the well abandonment space, there's a huge part of our responsibility is methane abatement. So in the industry, whether it is routine in regards to the production facility or non-routine because it's from a MODU, mobile offshore drilling unit, we have a responsibility to manage our methane abatement. So it seems counterintuitive to go to an operator and suggest that we flare off during a decommissioning exercise. It is significantly better to flare off any methane that comes out the well, whether it's from the annulus because it's leaked in or whether it's from the well itself. So we do take that responsibility seriously, and we're constantly evolving our packages. So our bleed off package, as we call it for decom, has changed significantly in the last 2 decades. To Alan's point, we really have what you would see as a topside recycling centre to manage the effluent. And then we would also look at our methane abatement to reduce our methane that gets vented, and we would now look to flare that because that's better for the environment. So it's an ever-changing environment, and we continue to look at how can we then get rid of that. But I think we're taking the right steps.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked a lot about the how you do the thing, but what about the what you do here? So it's talk to us about your Expro's track record in decommissioning, and if there's any projects that really kind of typify Expro's excellence in this area.
Yeah, I think so. You know, from my personal career, I've been very lucky to be involved in a number of high-profile decommission projects from blue chips. Some of which were exiting the basin because they were looking at investing elsewhere. Some because they're just managing their portfolio, and it's COP of there. So from us, you know, these are Central North Sea, these are offshore Ireland, for example, and they were amazing projects because they were. The one thing about that a decommission project offers the industry is run rate. That's what we're all looking for. The North Sea basin specifically has been quite tight in recent years by doing single well projects or couple well projects, but decommission offers this run rate. And the projects that highlight to me are these long-term partner projects where the customer partners the supply chain, and we deliver safely, we deliver ahead of AFE, and we deliver ahead of schedule. And we've done this time after time for these major operators.
Yeah, I think you know, again, going back to there's two elements that Expro get involved.
Yeah.
One is in the enablement of the P&A process, so we can provide the discrete services, the well access service, the data acquisition services that the client needs to liquidate the scope. And then the other part of it is in the integrated service, and that's where we've been very heavily involved in Southern Ireland. We've been very heavily involved in the Southern North Sea, even in West Africa, where the client and the customer has come to us and said, we recognize you have a portfolio of services. We're interested in more than just the enablement piece, is how do we design our P&A activity set so that we can integrate all of the systems that you have and all the services you have to deliver more efficient outcome. And that's where we like to be. We like to engage with the customer very, very early on in the process, understand the scope, optimize the design, and then deliver the process from an integrated services perspective, even to a point where we have designed perforating systems for some customers so that they can liquidate an activity set much more efficiently than they would have normally done with the commonly available perforation systems. So we like to play in that space. We are moving in that space more and more, levering those activity sets that we've delivered in the integrated services in the past.
One final question, guys, and it's about the future. So how do we see the future of well decommissioning? What developments do you think that we'll see in the next few years or even further afield? How do you think it's going?
I think for us it is all centred around de-risking, as Donald said earlier on, de-risking the process, both from a technical and commercial perspective. And really the way to de-risk, it's like that marathon runner, we'll go all the way back to that. The way to assure that you're going to run a 45-minute 10 kilometre is to understand the terrain you're going to run through for the process. Then you can prepare for that. So we are going to see a lot more technologies come to the market and continue to be developed and further enhanced that are based on gathering data to allow the customer to de-risk and gathering as much data as we can with minimal impact to either people or to the installation or to the well site, so that the customer can grab as much information as they can, as quickly as they can, as cost effectively as we can. So any technologies that are designed to acquire data in a single deployment into the wellbore are going to be really, really something that the customer is going to chase after. And we hear a lot specifically about barrier evaluation. And our customers want us to evaluate the barriers on the outside of the wellbore by running through the middle of the wellbore. It's quite a challenging technique, but there are technologies that the customer can deploy today that can allow the customer to see all the way out to the extremities of their wellbore, so they understand what their barrier status looks like, and they can absolutely de-risk that P&A program.
Okay, great.
No, I guess I would only add to that you know, there's obviously the technology needs to evolve and needs to partner what the risks are and the solutions. But I think that one of the most important things is that the decom supply chain needs to be outcome based, because the pressure that's in front of us on schedule and cost is not going to go away. So from our perspective, as a supply chain, in whatever basin, wherever we are in the world, it's making sure that we're selecting the right tool for the right job. And I know that sounds simple, but it's not.
No, I'm sure.
So it is a case of planning properly, selecting the right tool for the right job, and then holding ourselves to account and feeding those lessons learned in. And I think where we, again, go back to your point on these campaigns really are real. They allow you to feed lessons learned back into the process to then improve the next year of work. And they're one of the few work scopes, beyond the big greenfield developments that offer that to the market. So for us, is that supply chain coalition and the right tool to the right job, and that's what will deliver on time, under budget, and cost effective well decommissioning.
Great. I know throughout this episode we've talked about marathons and things, but it's felt like we've kind of sprinted through decommissioning here, well decommissioning, but I really appreciate your insights, and I'm sure everybody else's as well. It's been really insightful. It's an eye-opener. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
And thanks to you for watching this latest issue of Expro Experts Unplugged. Until we meet again, thank you and goodbye from Expro.